Hey everybody, Rachel McLove here from Empire Tax Professionals. I'm the CEO of Empire Tax Professionals, and I'm also a licensed enrolled agent and licensed in 50 states. So today I want to quickly go over someone's question. Someone emailed me a question this week. So this is their question. Hey Rachel, I'm hiring my first employee and don't know what documents I would need to start paying them. What's the process? What forms do I need to start collecting? This client is specifically in New York City, and they're saying thank you for your help. So first things first, when hiring your first employee, you need to make sure that you collect the proper documentation from your employee. If you're in New York City, you need to have workers' compensation before you hire your first employee. So you would call your normal insurance broker, you would get, workers' comp insurance. And I want to tell you guys, if you don't have workers' comp insurance, you get a fine of $2,000 for every 10 days for not having workers' comp insurance. We had a client who's a daycare in New York City who came to us with a bill of $111,000 for not having workers' comp insurance, and she's a daycare, okay? So first things first, before hiring anybody, you want to make sure that you get workers' comp insurance. Now, normally how the process works is you call workers' comp and you say, hey, I'm about to hire my first employee. They'll ask you, what do you expect your payroll to be for that employee? You could say $20,000, you could say $30,000, whatever you expect for it to be. You could times, you could say $500 times 52 weeks, or whatever you're expecting to pay that employee, right? They'll say, okay, based on your gross payroll, your workers' compensation would be, $1,000 for the entire year or $500 for the entire year. It's estimated based on the gross wages. So you end up paying, everything is fine. Then at the end of the year, what happens is you get an audit. Every single year, you get an audit from workers' comp. And we normally take care of that for our clients. They say, okay, you told us that your payroll was going to be $20,000 for the entire year. So how much was your actual payroll? Was it $25,000 or was it $15,000? You provide the proper payroll returns, and they add everything up, and they say, okay, your payroll was really $15,000 instead of the $20,000, and you end up getting a refund, right? Or if your payroll was $25,000 for the entire year versus the $20K that you initially told them, you would pay just a little bit more, and then that's it. The audit would be done, and it's very simple. It's nothing scary. So that's the first thing that you would want to do. Make sure that you have workers' comp insurance, and every single state varies, right? You want to know, you want to ask us if you want us to check for you in your state. If you are required to have workers' comp insurance in your state, but in New York, you are required to have workers' comp, and let us know if you want us to check your state. We could do that for you. So second thing is you need to register with Department of Labor, and this is the same for every single state, regardless of what state you're in. So you need to register with Department of Labor before you hire your first employee. Once you register with Department of Labor, you get a Department of Labor, like a yellow poster so the state gives you permission to start collecting payroll taxes on behalf of the employee. You become like a trust fund, right? So let's say you're supposed to pay the employee $500 weekly, and you withhold $100 out of their paycheck. The state is trusting you to take that $100, and you're supposed to give it to the state and the city, unemployment insurance, etc. So you're becoming a trust fund for the state. So before you even hire your first employee, the second thing you need to do is register with Department of Labor. The third thing is, so now that you have those licenses in place and everything, your employee comes into the office and you start giving them the proper documentation because they're hired, right? So you would need to collect a W-4 form. You would need to collect an I-9 form as well. Make sure everything is properly filled out. Make sure you take the proper documentation from them. So either a driver's license, or you could take a social security card, or a passport. On the I-9 form, I think it's page 5, it lists the specific documentation that you are allowed to collect. And on the I-9 form, there's a place where the employer signs and you verify the information that you collected. As employers, there's so much that you need to do in order for you to be compliant per, IRS standards, per New York State or your state standards. And then there's city and local state requirements that every single employer needs to comply with. And if you don't comply with it, then you get penalties from every single direction, right? We had a daycare years ago. She did not put her employees on payroll. So what happened was New York State started auditing her. Then once New York State started auditing her, IRS came and said, oh, you were audited by the state. Now IRS started auditing her. Then workers' comp sent her a bill. Then New York City, like every single department, sometimes they communicate with one another. So if one department, audits you, then you just get audited from every single department, and that's not something that you want. So make sure that you collect the proper documentation and you have it in a specific payroll folder that is easily accessible. So if Department of Labor shows up and does a check and they're going to see 5 employees in your location, you would need to have those records on file. So W-4, I-9, make sure everything is filled out correctly, and then the documentation right behind it, driver's license and social security number, or a passport, and look at the I-9 forms to make sure that you're collecting the proper documentation for your employees. The next thing is, depending on the type of business that you're in, you would want to collect a non-compete. I don't know what type of business, if you're a marketing agency or an Amazon seller or even an accountant, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're collecting a non-compete and a confidentiality letter, okay? You want to have an employer attorney fill those forms out, and it has to be enforceable in your state. And you want to make sure that they're signing those documentations, so just in case if they ever quit or you even fire them, you are protected in your state and they can't really share any information that's within your office. So that's really important. Also, if you're going to start paying or hiring payroll hiring employees, you want to make sure that you know the payroll tax deadlines. Every single quarter, you're required to file a payroll return, regardless if you had employees or not. So for example, let's say you register with Department of Labor and you say, you hired your employee starting January 1st, 2019. 2 weeks later, your employee quits or you fire them. Now you don't have anybody, right? There's nobody working for you. First quarter, you file the payroll returns with the withholding that you collected for the employee. Second quarter, you can't find anybody and you don't have any employees. You are still required to file a 0 payroll return for the IRS and state city purposes. If you don't, then New York State charges you an $1,000 fine for not filing a payroll return. Every single state is different, and I'm licensed in 50 states. I can help you in 50 states, but you need to remember that regardless if you had 0 wages or even 0 sales tax, you're required to always file a return every single quarter. I have a payroll packet that I could share with everybody. It has W-4, I-9 forms, and specific, documentation if you wanted to hire an independent contractor. It also has like best practices for payroll, so we could share that with you. So you have a lot of contractors that you're working with. So before you hire any independent contractors, you want to make sure that you have the proper documentation. So anyone that you're paying on a 1099, you want to make sure that you have a W-9 form. Give it to them before they start working for you, and then at the end of the year, you're required to issue them a 1099 form. Now, here's a tip. I had a Department of Labor audit today, all day, like it was like 7 hours. And Department of Labor, not for me, for somebody that I'm helping. So Department of Labor, what they do is they normally look at your bank statements, and they look at the contractors that you're paying. So if you're paying a contractor to an individual name, they start questioning you and they say, who is this person? What do they do? Where do they work for you? It is to their best interest to convert that independent contractor to an employee because they want you to pay taxes on that, independent contractor, right? But if you pay that independent contractor to their business name, they won't even question you. They'll assume that it's an independent contractor and they'll let you go. So don't pay any independent contractor to their personal name. Always have them, go to court and get a DBA or set up an LLC, pay every single independent contractor to their corporation name so you can reduce any red flags and reduce any audits. Nobody wants to get audited. Everybody wants to be, they just don't want to get audited. Everybody just wants to be clear. But you do reduce the risks of audit if you pay an independent contractor to their company name versus to their individual name. Okay, so that's the question. Again, I have a payroll packet. If you're a client, just email us and we'll send it to you. Or if you're a prospect or anything, if you need it, let us know and we'll send you the payroll packet that we created, because this is something that a lot of people are asking. They don't know where to start when they hire their first employee. They don't know what they need to do, what documentation they need to collect, and how often they need to pay. I think you need to pay your employees every single week or biweekly. That should also have like a contract. You need to inform your employees, okay, you're going to be getting $15 an hour. You're going to be paid weekly. You want to put everything in writing to avoid any miscommunication. So that's it. I have another question, but I'm running out of time. I will answer these questions on a weekly or even on a daily basis. If you have any specific question that you want me to answer live, let me know and I'll go live and answer it, because I know it helps a lot of business owners, on Facebook, and it benefits a lot of people, which is my passion. Let me know if you have any questions. I love helping other business owners. I appreciate all of you, and thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.